Hi everybody, I'm Derek.
I'm Claire.
The Great Learning 大学 is a 2,500-year-old Chinese text from the Zhou dynasty.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
It's like an ancient self-help guide written by Confucius. One of the key lines from it appears in the Hollywood classic, The Karate Kid. Keep watching and you could change your life
And the world.
What you see here is a Latin translation of the 4 books by Jesuit priests. It was printed in 1687 when it was dedicated to the Sun King Louis XIV. A copy of it was actually given to him in person by one of the translators. It was read by many Enlightenment thinkers, including Voltaire, who actually had a painting of Confucius in his study room.
Wow, that's cool.
The short main section of the Great Learning is attributed to Confucius, while the much longer commentary section is attributed to his disciple and heir to the Confucian lineage, Zhengzi.
曾子.
The Great Learning is the Confucian blueprint for self-improvement with the steps to lead us on the path to
The world of harmony.
We actually have a very detailed description of what Confucius envisioned as a world of harmony. In Chinese, it's called
大同.
Even though it was written 2,500 years ago as well, it aligns perfectly with our current so-called modern cultural values and ideals. It's a world where the aged are cared for until death. Adults are employed in jobs that make full use of their abilities, and children are nourished, educated, and fostered. Widows and widowers, orphans and the old without children, the disabled and the diseased are all well taken care of. Intrigues and conspiracies do not arise, and thievery and robbery do not occur. Doors never need be locked. Do you lock your doors?
Sometimes. How do we get a world of harmony?
First, we'll need good governance and order amongst the nations. We need great men and women to be role models for the rest of us. Leaders who are virtuous and worthy, wise, and capable. Confucius said, governing by the power of virtue can be compared to the pole star, which remains fixed in place while all the other stars orbit respectfully around it. Good governance and order requires excellent, virtuous leaders.
How do we become one?
First, you're going to have to create unity in your family. Family unity, according to the Great Learning, is predicated on 3 things: filial piety, respect between siblings, and kindness for each other. Filial piety is a translation coined in the 1800s for the Chinese virtue of
孝.
which can be thought of as doing a good job of honoring and respecting your parents. Zhengzi was renowned for filial piety, and he actually wrote a book about filial piety, the Filial Piety Classic. Here we have Thomas Jefferson, the 3rd president. A lively and lasting sense of filial duty is more effectually impressed on the mind of a son or daughter by reading King Lear than by all the dry volumes of ethics and divinity that were ever written. Or you could just watch The Lion King.
Nice.
If you don't like Shakespeare, just watch Disney. This story is also Confucian in nature. We see how Simba's love for his father inspires him. And we also see the chaos that ensues when you have an unvirtuous king like Scar who puts personal gain over sibling respect and other virtues. Here's a statue from an ancient story of filial piety that was made into another Disney movie. Can you guess which one?
木兰.
That's right, Mulan. Okay, how do we develop filial piety, sibling respect, kindness? Where does this come from? First, you have to refine and temper yourself. From kings and queens to common folk, for all alike, refining oneself is like the roots of a tree. If the roots are a mess, the rest of the tree is going to be a mess. Right?
Maybe.
Okay. It's not possible for the rest of the tree and branches to flourish. The sport of choice in ancient China was archery, and Confucius thought of it to be an excellent metaphor for self-refinement. Unfortunately, we don't see archery on ESPN that much, but what we do see on ESPN a lot is golf. Golf has a lot in common with the ancient sport of archery. There's a lot of etiquette, and if you don't get the ball in the hole, then you don't blame the other competitor, you just blame yourself, and you try harder next time. This corresponds with the ancient idea, should one miss the target, seek for the cause within yourself. Confucius also said in the Great Learning, there are few men in the world who love and at the same time know the bad qualities of the object of their love, or who dislike and yet know the excellences of the object of their dislike. Alas, as the ancient proverb goes, few recognize the faults of their own children. Few farmers recognize the great yield of the crops they produce. What is this ancient proverb trying to tell us? Well, focus on your own crops and not the Joneses' crops, or you'll never know how much corn you really have.
How do we refine ourselves?
First, we have to write our hearts and minds. Okay, this is where the Karate Kid gets its inspiration. Why is this franchise so successful? It teaches us a simple yet powerful message. It taught him the secret to karate lies in the mind and heart, not in the hands. There's a scene in part 2 where Daniel follows Mr. Miyagi back to Okinawa, where he gets introduced to his family dojo. On the walls are 2 banners. Daniel asks, what do they mean? And Mr. Miyagi responds, rule number 1, karate for defense only. Rule number 2, first learn rule number 1. Daniel and we, the viewer who can't read kanji, are never explicitly told the meaning of rule number 2. But from what happens in these stories, we can figure out that rule number 2 is to first write your mind and heart, which is the philosophy that originates from the Great Learning. Interesting fact here, in ancient China, they thought that the heart was the center of cognition. That's where the heart-mind translation sometimes comes from. In the Great Learning, it says, when your heart and mind have been riled up, or are troubled by worry, or consumed by desire, or filled with anxiety, your heart and mind will not be present in the moment. You look,
But you can see.
you listen,
But you can hear.
you eat.
But you can taste. How does it taste?
I don't know. In one of his most famous lines, Mr. Miyagi tells Daniel about the importance of maintaining the right mindset and heart. Never put passion before principle. Even if you win, you lose.
How do we write our hearts and minds?
First, we must have sincere intentions. What we believe and what we do must align together as one. Imagine you're walking home late at night, no one's around, and you see a pot of gold coins on the street. What will you do?
Just bring to the police.
Why can't you borrow money from a leprechaun?
That's dangerous.
Because leprechauns are always a little short. In the Bible, there's a parable that teaches us about the importance of having sincere intentions. The Good Samaritan.
How do we make our intention sincere?
First, we have to extend our knowledge and understanding through Ge'u. Unfortunately, as the received text of the Great Learning was being passed down throughout the years, this crucial commentary was lost, and there has been considerable debate over what Ge'u, the key to expanding our knowledge and understanding, actually is. The common translation of Ge'u as the investigation of things came from the interpretation of Zhongxi and the prominent Song Dynasty Neo-Confucians. Everything has its principles. Through the investigation of these things, we then expand our knowledge and understanding. Think Benjamin Franklin. That's a lot of investigating to do. Wang Yangming of the later Ming Dynasty did not entirely agree with his interpretation of Ge'u. He was influenced by Wu Jiuyuan and believed that Ge'u is the removal of inner impediments that block us from fulfilling what our conscience and our true nature guides and tells us to do. For example, take a look at this room here. It's a mess. When you do this to your heart and mind, that's 格物, according to Wang Yangming's interpretation. What about the Karate Kid? Can it give us any insight into 格物? Well, the turning point in the movie where Daniel finally comes around to understand Mr. Miyagi is this scene. Instead of teaching him karate, Mr. Miyagi teaches Daniel to do chores and wax his car. Wax on, wax off. Initially, Daniel dismisses these mundane tasks as a waste of time, but the importance of what he has been doing eventually clicks with him and the viewer. Good example of 格物.
Right.
When we follow the path of the great learning, we develop the enlightening virtue that renews the people. Like a sparrow instinctively knows where to rest, we need to abide our will in the highest good. When you know that abode, you'll have direction. This will bring you serenity, then stability, then mental clarity, and you'll then be able to attain results. Let's all say thank you to Confucius,
Thank you, Confucius.
曾子,
曾子.
and all those Confucians for giving us this great teaching, the great learning, 大学. If you like this video,
Give us a like.
and please subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Save the kingdom.
Wow.
Stop it.